Chapter 18. "All right, y'all," said Miss Jensen, smiling as she took in the class full of over-energized second graders. "I'm sorry about recess, but I can't turn off the rain for you. We'll have read aloud time and play some games afterward. How does that sound?" "Boring," one boy shouted, rocking back and forth so hard his desk clacked against the floor. "Good," a few kids said, their eyes already on the stack of board games in one corner of the classroom. "Yes, ma'am," the class's goody two-shoes replied, clasping her hands primly in her lap. From his seat behind the girl, Alden Thorne raised his hand, stretching for the ceiling. "Thank you for sitting so politely in your seat, Alden. Did you have a question? Can you read from the book about superheroes?" he asked quickly. "No, I want the dragon book," another boy protested. "I want." Miss Jensen held her hand up for silence. When the children finally calmed down, she said, "I think Alden should get to choose since he asked first. And since his family will be leaving Nashville soon to head to Chicago. Doesn't that sound fair?" A few people grumbled, but not many. Superheroes weren't a bad choice, as far as rainy day reading material went. The teacher pulled the familiar book out from under a stack of papers on her desk and took her seat at the front of the room. "Okay, who remembers which class of Avowed we read about last time?" "Meister," the girl sitting in front of Alden said promptly. Alden lowered his hand in disappointment. "That's right, Clara. So, let's see. Oh, today's class is one of the RARs. Isn't that exciting? Who knows what a rabbit does? My daddy says they're rich. My daddy says they're cowards." "You're wrong," Clara said in an uncharacteristic shout. "That's a bad thing to call any of the Avowed. They're brave, and they fight demons and bad guys for us, and my mama says only doesn't say mean things about them because they're jealous not everyone gets powers." The whole class had started whispering. Miss Jensen's smile was getting thinner by the second. "Settle down," she called. "Remember that conversation we've had a few times this year. About how we will try to think our own thoughts in class and not only repeat what we've heard from others." Clara gasped. "But that doesn't mean our parents, does it?" The teacher cleared her throat. "Let's all learn from this nice book," she said. "And not talk about things like dissidents anymore." Before anyone could protest, she started reading. Pound sign, pound sign, pound sign. From a children's encyclopedia of the Avowed. Interviews with real suffer-humans in every chapter. You've probably heard of the classes we've talked about so far, but have you ever heard of a rabbit? No, not the cute and cuddly animal you might have for a pet. Rabbit is a funny-sounding name for an Avowed class that is just as serious and important as all the others in this book. Rabbits offer their service to make Earth and Artona better places, just like all the other superhumans here. The interdimensional warrior's contract isn't just for people who fight villains here on Earth and wherever else they might be called to by our Artonan friends. We've already met some healers. Let's learn about another class that does special work away from the dangers of the battlefield. But first, where did the name Rabbit come from? To answer that question, we've asked Honorable Tykrall, a biologist from Artona 2, to explain. The Riabi single quotee is a small flying reptile, native to Artona 3. It was domesticated more than 20,000 years ago, and it has since become a popular companion animal throughout the Triplanets and on many of our resource worlds. The Riabi single quotee is known for being swift, clever, and easily trained. Many Artonan children enjoy using their pet Riabi single quotees to send gifts and messages to their friends. Though normally it is unacceptable to call sentient beings by animal names, the Riabi single quotee is so beloved that it has become common practice to refer to particularly helpful children or useful junior members of business organizations as little Riabi single quotees. The Riabi single quotee class exists on every Artonan resource world. Humans who are chosen as Riabi single quotees usually use their skills to work as assistants and errand runners on the Triplanets. Their powers might not be as flashy as the superheroes, but they are summoned to help out the Artonans more often than any other class. When the system first came to Earth in 1963, The word rab single quote T and the way members of the class are prone to disappearing in a flash when they are summoned, made English speakers think of rabbits. The name quickly entered common use, and the system adjusted it to accommodate human preferences. Now, our friendly interviewer Stephen will talk to rank rabbit Mariam Musa about this interesting class. ###. Stephen: Hi, Ms. Musa. Our young readers would love to know more about you and rabbits in general. How long have you been a rabbit? Mariam: I was chosen 17 years ago. What are some good things about the class? If you select a valuable skill, you get summoned more than other superhumans. Rabbits do a wide variety of different jobs, and they usually receive our gold for their services. That's the system currency. So, are rabbits rich? Well, the ones who select a good skill. Not all of them. Is the money your favorite thing about being a rabbit? No. I like my starter skill the best. What kind of skill is it, Ms. Musa? I fold napkins into decorative shapes. When I first became an avowed, I could only manage a few, but now I can do hundreds of them per hour. What an unusual skill. Are most rabbit skills like that? I don't know about every skill. But skills like mine are interesting because they can help you do complicated things very quickly. I guess you use your powers to help at important parties and banquets on the true planets. That's one of the things I'm often summoned for. So you're like a party planner. That is a fun job. No. I don't plan things. I just fold. Some of our readers may not realize how important that is, but the Artonans greatly value beauty. I'm sure they appreciate your skill very much. People don't understand because they don't think about it. Not really. There's a lot that goes into folding a napkin. I bet. Well, thank you for your time, Ms. Musa. I'm sure many children will want to become a rabbit after reading our interview. ###. In Miss Jensen's classroom, the second graders had all fallen silent. Most of them had looks of consternation on their faces. A few were smiling uncertainly, as if they thought their teacher might have told them a joke, but they weren't quite confident enough to laugh about it. Clara raised her hand. Can't regular people fold napkins into pretty shapes? They can. Another girl said confidently. I went on a cruise, and the napkins were all folded. They don't need superpowers for that. But the rabbit lady is rich. That's good. A boy said. I wanna be rich. My daddy is rich. I want to be a superhero who shoots fire out of my face. Alden raised his hand. Closing the book, Miss Jensen smiled at him. Everyone please notice how Alden and Clara raised their hands. Yes, Alden. Did you like the interview with Ms. Musa? I'm confused, he said. Why do the Artonans need somebody to fold napkins for them? Can't they do it themselves? Well. Ms. Jensen tucked her hair behind her ears and bit her lip, apparently thinking about the question. I know everyone is very excited about superpowers. When we see a brave hero protecting us from bad people or we hear about them saving someone from a disaster, all of our attention is on them. But the world needs all kinds of helpers, doesn't it? Clara raised her hand again. Yes, Clara. Last week you taught us about want and need. She said proudly. Want and need are different. That's true, but pretty napkins is a want, isn't it? It is, one of her friends agreed. I think so, too. Maybe it's a need if it's for a wedding? My cousin's getting married. I'm going to be the flower girl. Artonans have weddings too. My mama says sometimes they have 3 brides and grooms at a time. That's bad. No, it's not. 3's my favorite number. Alright, y'all. I think we're getting a little bit off track. Let's all take a minute to think of good things Rabbit Avowed can do for the world. Whoever comes up with the best answer will get a new pencil from the pencil box. This challenge earned Miss Jensen a few blissful minutes of quiet while everyone wrote down their best guesses. Alden, who had no knowledge of rabbits beyond what he had just learned, answered that they could probably fold lots of towels for hotels. Which would be good for the hotels, since if you didn't fold the towels your guests would hate you. Clara won because she knew that there was a rabbit on the Anisidran High Council, and he helped to make important laws for superhumans on the island. Laws are a need, not a want, she announced righteously as she marched back to her desk with her prize pencil. It's not fair, Alden muttered. Lawmaking didn't have anything to do with the rabbit's superpower. Which was the whole point of the assignment in his opinion. Rabbits are dumb. Who would ever want to be one of those? Chapter 19 Alden, stop typing "what are rabbits good for" into the search bar. It's getting a little pathetic. I'll stop typing it and when the answer stops being nothing. What about that S-rank who used his floor polishing skill to create an iceless skating rink on the island? You said it was neat. I know. It's cool. And I'm not dumb. I see that the power has much wider applications than you'd notice at first glance. But it's also his only skill. He's 25. He's an S, it's his only one. What the hell, Bo? Bo shrugged and threw a gum wrapper at Jeremy, who was standing by Alden's bedroom window staring at them both with a stupefied look on his face. Maybe S isn't as all-powerful as people make it out to be, Bo said. Anyway, rabbits have a soft restriction on receiving talents as quest rewards, right? They have to level if they want skills and spells. That guy didn't. He's just lazy. Doesn't mean anything. But, Alden, how did you become an avowed? Jeremy said for the 5th time that afternoon. They'd asked him to meet them at Alden's place after school and told him everything. Unlike Bo, he was not processing the situation well. You broke him, Alden. He's lost his entire vocabulary except for that one question. Jeremy, Alden said, clicking on the 12th page of search results. Sit down, man. Bo will explain it to you. Why me? Alden gestured at his computer. I'm busy. Once you go past the 3rd page of results you're not busy, said Bo. You're panicking. No, I'm not. He was. He'd already decided to go through with it. He trusted Gorgon. He knew he was going to do it. But at the same time, there was a voice in his head screaming, I don't want to be a rabbit. They're lame and stupid and boring. They are not heroes. They are napkin folders. And though he'd been trying for hours, Alden couldn't find a single piece of information that would make his inner 2nd grader even a little bit happier. We'll be rich. Isn't that nice? He muttered. Great. Now you've broken yourself. Are you using the royal we? I'm giving my inner brat a pep talk. It's a private conversation. But it didn't work. Even the wealth rabbits were famous for wasn't a guarantee. They were summoned to the true planets a couple of times a month if they had normal luck. When they were there, they usually performed a small magical task their skill was uniquely suited for. They finished up in a few hours and bounced back to Earth with a decent amount of our gold in their account. Translated into dollars, the average annual rabbit salary was around $500,000. For almost zero work. But that was the average. The Artonans weren't obligated to summon anyone. Plenty of rabbits were flat broke. Maybe Alden would be one of them. People had barely scratched the surface of the skill list for rabbit, and of course the basic descriptions that were provided pre-affixation were as vague as they were for most classes. The smart thing to do was choose one of the starter skills that had already been safely trailblazed for you by an older rabbit. There were about 30 that were generally agreed to be sure bets, and the vast majority of people picked them these days. After all, if you wanted to live dangerously you'd trade into a different class. Everyone's going to think I'm a bum, Alden groaned as he clicked through the social media account of a 17-year-old Ranker rabbit who was famous for declaring herself retired before she had graduated high school. And what's with this skill? Nobody's ever picked it before. Did you guys see the description? Whatever generous B rank had taken the time to type up the entire rabbit skill list deserved a standing ovation. It must have taken hours. And there, right in the middle of it, was Gorgon's recommendation. Let me take your luggage, rank B. The rabbit carries an item that has been entrusted to them. The system's such a jerk. What does this even do? Does it make you stronger? Does it boost stamina? Does it give you an extra set of arms so you can hold more bags? Alden slapped the laptop shut in frustration. That last one would be hilarious, Bo said with a snicker. He was sitting on the floor by the bed, flipping through a stack of old magazines he had taken from the enormous pile Aunt Connie kept in the living room. Beside him, Jeremy had finally recovered enough to give a shaky laugh. How would he buy shirts? He'll have them custom tailored with all his Argold. Maybe he could buy them from Wardrobe. Alden smiled and groaned. Don't remind me about Wardrobe. It's such a bizarro perk. Hey, it's pretty sweet to have easy access to armor, said Bo. Nobody else gets that except for a few of the hardcore battle subclasses. And even they don't get it before leveling. Armor. I think you mean alien cosplay. And have you seen what they cost? That's why you're asking for money up front in addition to the class. And the clothes in the wardrobe do increase stats. That makes them armor. Jeremy blinked owlishly up at Alden. Are you really going to pick rabbit? You don't seem like a rabbit to me. Thanks, Jeremy. And yeah. Bo accused me of being a coward earlier today. I said you were clinging to a jester out of fear. Not that you were fundamentally a coward. So I'm going to prove him wrong by bravely choosing rabbit. Alden said, ignoring Bo and holding a hand to his chest in what he hoped was a mock heroic pose. A class well known for its valor. Well, you have to get it first, Mr. Bravery. Stop agonizing and compose your letter to the Volras. Make it good. Quick question, Jeremy said. Did you two try emailing them? The letter's going to be awesome, but if Alden wants an answer fast. It was silly, but Alden was comforted by the fact that they were both acting like sending the letter was a group project. He'd been worried that telling them he'd been selected would create an insurmountable gap in their friendship. It was hard, knowing he'd see so much less of them in the future. Bo's right. It's never the same when someone moves away. But for now, they had business to attend to. He turned to Jeremy. I actually tried a system call, but it told me I was unauthorized. And we can't find a way to contact them quickly online. We wanted to send an email to Alaya Volra. She's the S-rank in charge of the family. But she's kind of a huge deal. She ran for president of the Anisidran High Council a few years ago. She didn't come close to winning, Bo chimed in, but she's still not someone who lists her personal email address online for any Rondo in the world to find. And we sent a test email to her public one, but it just gave us an auto-reply, Alden said. She's probably got some overworked Pennsylvania going through hundreds of messages a day. Since I'm going to go to Unzidora tomorrow anyway, we thought I could try to mail a letter from there to one of the less senior family members. It'll be way quicker if I toss it in a mailbox or hire a delivery service on the island itself. It can take ages for mail to get there from the US. I tried to send Hannah a Christmas card once, and it arrived in mid-January. Alden, just write the message, said Bo. Make sure to include all of our demands and all the relevant details. Jeremy, the time has come. Go find scissors and glue sticks. Jeremy jumped up. Why do we need scissors and glue? Alden asked. I was going to type the message and print it out at the library. He had already bookmarked a page on professional letter writing so he could make sure he formatted it properly. Boo, said Bo. Boring. It's an anonymous note to the leaders of a superhuman faction who are desperately trying to find you. Have you no aesthetic sensibilities? Dude, we're going to make a collage out of words from your aunt's magazines. Jeremy said. He sounded thrilled about it. Alden gaped at them. How had he missed this particular plan developing? What is wrong with you two? No. You want to make the critically important letter out of chopped up magazines. That'll make me look like a serial killer. It'll be funny, said Bo, waving one of the magazines at him. It's hilarious. Jeremy agreed. They find out you exist. They think you're just some random guy in Illinois. They sent Skiff after you. He could be working for someone else. And I am just some random guy in Illinois. Jeremy didn't seem to hear him. And the next day, he snapped his fingers. A letter sent from the island shows up on their doorstep that's like, ha ha, assholes. I know you think you're smarter than me, but you'll never find out who I am. Jeremy beamed and leaned over to give Bo a high five. You idiots, Alden said. But he couldn't keep the laughter out of his voice. That's so ridiculous. Even if the letter's anonymous, they'll still be able to figure out who I am in a few months. Unless there's another B-rank rabbit arriving on the island from Chicago. The Vulras will think I'm total lunatic. You have to accept that, Bo said kindly. This is a rare opportunity. You have to do it, Jeremy agreed, bouncing up and down like a kid. No way. Do it. Do it. Not in a million years. Pound sign, pound sign, pound sign. It's beautiful, Jeremy breathed. It was 3 hours later. Alden had paper cuts, and the letter Y was glued to his forehead. His room was covered in a flurry of shredded magazines. But lying on his desk was the professional, polite, and thorough letter he'd written, which took up 5 pages of paper when it was turned into a creepy kidnapper-esque collage. I should have taken out the part where I requested a magical non-disclosure agreement. It had taken forever to paste in a detailed explanation of why he was asking the Vulras to not tell anyone that he had contacted them of his own free will. And it seemed rude. Like he was saying, I want you to help me and give me your money, but also, I want you to make sure people think you took advantage of me. Please. In the midst of pondering how that would come across to the powerful family, Alden caught Bo making a surreptitious hand movement. Jeremy, stop him, Alden said tersely. He's trying to add a postscript again. Jeremy grabbed the back of Bo's t-shirt and yanked. I'm trying to help you, you ingrate. Bo squawked, clutching the magazine headline to his chest. Jeremy pried it out of his fingers. He inspected it. This one says, make me a millionaire, sugar. His forehead creased. Your aunt has interesting taste in magazines. She just buys whatever's on the front of the rack in checkout lines. Destroy it. Jeremy wadded it into a ball and threw it in a perfect arc at the trash can. It bounced off a towering heap of paper and fell into the floor with everything else. You're both fools. Bo, we're already asking them for 50,000 gold. I almost fainted gluing the number in. It's plenty. It was a little more than $150,000. Alden hadn't picked the amount randomly. He'd been researching the prices of things he knew he might want to buy even as a student, and assuming his new rabbit skill wasn't useless, this amount should be enough to set him up with decent starter supplies. Fine, Bo spat. Don't accept my wisdom. Starve to death trying to buy decent vegan food on a man-made island that produces no produce. I bet a banana costs like $15. I can't tell them to find rabbit for me, keep my connection to them a secret, and give me an absurd amount of money. It's one thing too many. I want them to help me, not assassinate me. Yeah, Jeremy agreed. Even I think that's a bit much. It's like saying, hey, Veldris. Give someone lots of money so that they'll give me the rare class that makes lots of money. Then give me way more money on top of it. Sounds crazy. Your opinion is invalid, rich boy. Alden agrees with me. Alden dreams of fighting crime in tights, while carrying other avowed suitcases, apparently. We can't trust him to take care of himself. There will be no tights. Lots of superheroes wear compression stockings for their health, though, Jeremy said in a serious voice. So you might have to. Both Alden and Bo stared at him. I heard it on an infomercial, Jeremy said sincerely. Bo opened his mouth. Judging by his expression, he was going to say something more exasperated than cutting, but he never got the chance. All of a sudden, from the living room, a familiar voice rang out. Alden. You home? I brought pizza. Ooh. Pizza. Jeremy was out the door in a flash. You can't be too mean to him when I leave, Alden said. Bo sighed. I'll do my best. No way. Your best sucks. Do better than that. See, normally that would hurt my feelings. But right now I can't register the pain through my pity. Alden frowned at him. Bo headed for the door after Jeremy. You haven't told your aunt about your diet, right? He said over his shoulder. Then, grinning, he shouted, MMMM. Connie. The pizza smells awesome. Double sausage like always. You know it. Aunt Connie called back. Alden swore. Pound sign, pound sign, pound sign. The guys stayed over all night. They played video games with Aunt Connie, who was predictably enthusiastic about Alden's new diet and insisted on ordering another, depressingly salad-like pizza to celebrate. Nobody said they were trying to take Alden's mind off of the funeral, but he knew that was what they were doing. And he appreciated the hell out of it. He fell asleep on the sofa sometime after midnight and woke up a few hours later to the smell of more food. Not leftover pizza, but actual real food the likes of which their house had virtually never seen. He wandered into the kitchen to find his aunt and Jeremy sitting at the table with scolded expressions on their face, while Bo stood at the stove giving the sizzling pan in front of him a death glare. "Are you cooking?" Alden asked, twisting his head from side to side to work out the crick in his neck. "Maybe," Bo said, squinting at the pan. "I'm not sure. Your stove is sketchy. And I've never done tofu before. And Connie put the mashed avocado in here while I wasn't looking. So that's going to be a new experience. But possibly I am making breakfast hash. It smells great." "No. That's the coconut bacon. It is great. But Jeremy ate half of it already." "I'm in trouble," Jeremy mouthed. Alden's aunt nodded in agreement. Alden smiled. "You guys are the best. Your teleport's at 10? "Yeah. It'll be even earlier on Anzidora. I should get there a few hours before the service. And then Ms. Zhao's got me porting back late this evening. I think she wanted to give me a chance to hang out and be a tourist for a while if I wanted. It wasn't like anyone had known he'd be moving to the island on a permanent basis in the near future. It was supposed to be his last opportunity to visit anywhere he might have spent time with Hannah. "I took your dress shirt to the dry cleaner yesterday," Aunt Connie said. No, she hadn't. At least not the dress shirt that fit him. But it was still a nice gesture. "Thanks," Alden said. "I appreciate that." They ate together. The hash was good. It probably would have been great sans hot avocado goo. Alden found his thoughts kept scattering while the others talked around him. They flitted from Hannah, to the day ahead, to the letter in his room, to class selection, to Gordon, to everything. It had been a wild couple of days. When he focused back on the conversation at the table, he realized Jeremy was complaining about the fact that Bo was still dragging him to their consulate classes for the day even though Alden wouldn't be there. "Hey, will you two take notes for me?" he asked. "If you don't mind?" Normally they didn't bother. Bo didn't need to. Jeremy didn't want to. "I kind of feel like I shouldn't miss anything," Alden said, trying to keep it subtle in front of his aunt. Ditching regular classes was one thing. But consulate classes suddenly seemed way more relevant to his life than they had last weekend. "I'll do word chains," Jeremy offered. "If you're a glutton for punishment, I can record the lecture in our tone in life," said Bo. "You can listen to Instructor Pawi talk about irrigation as many times as you like." "Thanks, guys. Anyone up for attending my logogram class?" "Can't," said Bo. "We have plans." "Both of you do?" "Together. We made them just now, telepathically, when you asked for such a horrible favor." Alden spent the rest of the morning going over his schedule for the day, getting dressed, and trying not to fidget with his tie. "I wanted to bring up one more thing," said Bo, watching him over the top of a partially destroyed gardening magazine. Jeremy was in the living room vacuuming because he dropped a piece of pizza the night before. It wasn't a big deal, since the living room carpet was patterned with mysterious stains, but apparently the sanctity of clean flooring had been embedded into his brain by his mother, who was a neat freak. "What is it?" Alden asked. "Nothing too stressful, please. I'm pretty sure my adrenal system is nearing some kind of critical point." "Try not to be stressed then. I just wanted to remind you that you can't tell anyone on Anzidora you're one of them. Yet. It's not like I was planning to announce it at the service. I know. But in case it came up and you wanted to share with this Klee person or Argent Thomas or something. I'm not sure what happens if you tell them. Most of Hannah's friends were Islander kids, right? They might feel like you should register while you're there. With Nzidora I mean. Not the US, I'm not going to tell. But if something slips it wouldn't be the end of the world, would it? I do plan to register eventually. Bo scratched at a Z on his chin. I think it would be fine. I'm sure they'd let you come back home. But I'm not sure they'd let you come home alone. Alden had only been giving the conversation about a tenth of his attention. But when Bo said that, he suddenly found himself completely focused. What does that mean? So, with S's and A's they kind of get an honor guard once they've affixed and registered. Alden blinked. I think I've heard it mentioned in passing. It's for really high-value classes? No, it's for all of them, Bo said with a shake of his head. They get their own dedicated superhuman to follow them around for 90 days and help them prep for their transition to the island. It's all friendly enough, but if they refuse, they just get a dedicated spy instead. Alden straightened his tie for the 1000th time while he processed that. Oh, he said finally. No cold feet allowed, huh? You get it. I'm not sure it applies to B ranks. They don't have limitless resources. But I bet the city could afford to send a few cops to lurk around outside your house at all hours. And that would be a tense way to spend the next few months. All right. My lips are even more sealed than they were before. I'd like to have some time to figure out how to handle Rabbit without people hiding in the bushes around the house watching me. Good, said Bo. Your teleport's in 10. How does it work? I get a call from the system on my phone. There's a countdown, then a nasty feeling like you're about to vomit, and then you blink and you're in a travel center on Nzidora. Fun. To Alden's surprise, he sounded sincere. Yeah, it is. Pukey feeling aside. It's cool. He grinned. Maybe I'll get a teleportation skill one day. Bo rolled his eyes. I'm glad your penchant for dreaming is intact, you lowly B-rank rabbit. Pound sign, pound sign, pound sign. Alden's phone never rang with a call from the system. Instead, the interface blossomed to life in front of his eyes a minute before he was due to leave. A local teleportation instance has been requested. Destination, Nzidora, arrival station F. Time to teleport, 65 seconds. Do you wish to accept teleportation? Yes/no. It was a relief. He, Jeremy, and Bo had just been sitting around awkwardly, waiting for it to happen. It's a system notice. Not my phone. Makes sense. I wish I could see it, Jeremy groaned. Is it as awesome as I imagine it would be? Alden watched the timer tick down. I don't know. It's amazing, but it's also getting normal faster than I would have thought. I guess because it's similar enough to the tech we're already used to. Don't forget our letter. It's literally in my hand right now, Bo. Alden held up the large yellow envelope for emphasis. I meant don't get distracted by Superhero Island and forget to send it. I won't. You two are going to go to class today, aren't you? You're already running late. I'll haul Jeremy there somehow. Tell Gorgon what's up. He probably saw Skiff, but in case he's worried, we'll do it. Just do your thing already. Yeah, said Jeremy, waving his hands in front of Alden like a magician. Vanish. Begone. Alden agreed to the teleport. A few seconds later, right before Jeremy accidentally poked him in the eye, he felt nauseated. It passed as suddenly as it had come. And just like that, he was on Nzidora, standing inside a phone booth-sized teleportation bay. The arched ceiling over his head was covered in spiraling symbols. In front of him was what looked like a blank metal wall. He only knew it was the door because of prior experience. Welcome to Nzidora, Mr. Thorne, said a female voice through a hidden speaker. I see this isn't your first visit, so you know the drill. Security scan? Yep, said the voice. Do you submit to a scan? If you don't submit to the scan we can pull you out for an in-person evaluation. The wait time on that is usually half an hour. The scan's fine. Please hold still. This will only take a few seconds. Alden held still. This thing can't tell I'm a selectee, can it? The question sent a flash of panic through him. He'd always thought of the process as going through a glorified metal detector, so he'd agreed without a second thought. He opened his mouth to ask for the in-person evaluation instead, but as soon as he did, the door slid open. "You're all clear. Follow the signage to the exit. Have a nice day, Mr. Thorne." Chapter 20. Relieved, Alden tightened his grip on his envelope and exited the teleportation bay. He stood in a long hallway filled with bays identical to the one he'd just arrived through. People were streaming out of them at regular intervals, many of them dragging small suitcases behind them. Letting a woman in a hijab pass by, Alden took a second to get his bearings, then followed a lighted sign on the wall that said some version of "Way Out" in 5 different languages. A couple of minutes later, he'd reached a wide-open atrium full of potted palms and steel planters. A light flashed in the bottom right corner of his vision. When Alden focused his attention on it for a few seconds, the words "voice call from Clifton Zhao" scrolled upwards from the point of light. "Does the system just not see any point in using my cell phone anymore?" He wondered if his old messages were available through the interface somehow. He needed to practice with it more. He pulled his phone out of his pocket anyway and held it to his ear so that he wouldn't look like a system user to anyone else. "That also means I can't poke around at the ear in front of my face. Normal humans don't do that. Except call," he said quietly. "Hey, kid," Hannah's friend said. Her tone was friendly, but a little subdued. "I just got a notice for your teleport. Are you still in the right number of pieces?" "I am. Thanks for arranging it for me, Ms. Zhao. Hannah would have wanted you here." "There's nothing to thank me for. The service is taking place on the other side of Anzidora from you. In Apex. You've got around 3 hours to yourself in F-City, and then I'll come pick you up. We'll grab a quick lunch somewhere, if you're in the mood to eat, and head over. How does that sound?" "It sounds good." "Okay. See you." "Oh, wait. Almost forgot. I put 10R gold under your name in case you wanted to buy anything. Hannah used to do that, right? You know how it works? It's around 40 Canadian dollars. Sorry, I'm not up on the current US conversion. Hannah had always done that. Alden found himself swallowing around an unexpected lump. "That's really thoughtful of you. Thanks. No sweat. See you soon." After the call ended, Alden headed over to the atrium's help desk and picked up one of the debit cards that kids and other non-avowed used to pay for things on the island. The man working at the desk confirmed his identity with a thumbprint and loaded Clifton Zhao's money on the card, plus a little of Alden's own he'd brought to pay for stamps. Or whatever the Anisidran equivalent was. "What's the best way to mail something?" Alden asked as they finished up. "You mean a postcard?" the man said dismissively. "You'll have a hard time finding one. We don't have a tourist industry here on Anzidora." Alden had wondered why the guy was so rude when he'd asked for the debit card. He must be one of those Anzidora for Anisidrans types who thought non-avowed shouldn't be allowed to set foot here. Dick. Still, Alden wanted the information. "No. I mean, where's the nearest post office? I want to mail something to someone on the island." He sighed as though Alden had asked him to perform an impossible task. "There's a mailbox on your way out of the building. You can pay with your card." That was convenient. Alden was uncomfortable carrying around a letter that would reveal him as a selectee, and the sooner he got it out of his hands, the better. He found the mailbox near the exit easily enough. But using it turned out to be more of a process than he had anticipated. It was a big hunk of metal, larger than a refrigerator, with a baffling lack of helpful instructions, buttons, or screens. There was just a single cabinet for placing your parcel in, and below it, an etched signature that said "Right Work by Inda Juliana." Alden only knew it was a mailbox at all because it was sitting beside a sign that said "Post Drop." He walked around it, looking for somewhere to stick his new debit card, but he couldn't find anything. Is this one of those things that's obvious if you live here? Finally, feeling absurd, he tried talking to the box. "Hey, you're for mail, right?" "Hello," said a metallic voice. It was high and exuberant, like a cartoon character. "I am Post Drop 1301, a graduation capstone project gifted to F-City by Inda Juliana. Would you like to mail something?" "Yes," Alden said uncertainly. Great. Just place your envelope or parcel in my handy-dandy depository. Please no explosives, delicate electronics, or live animals. Okay. I wanted to confirm that the address is valid, though. Alden had an address for a big mansion owned by Aliabula's son Karin. Bo had found it online, but it still seemed like something he should double-check. No sweat. If your address doesn't match the name of your recipient, I will return your package to you. How do I buy postage? If you are an avowed, just place your hand anywhere on my front panel. I'll connect to your system interface. If you are a minor, a non-avowed resident, or a visitor, please place your NSICard in my depository with your mail. That's easy enough at least. Alden opened the cabinet and set his envelope inside along with his card. After he closed the door there was a sound like a boiling kettle. All right. I've scanned your delivery. It'll be half an hour gold to send it through standard post. Any additional fees incurred by recipient request for special services will be paid for by the recipient. How does that sound? Alden didn't know what special services might be. Maybe the talking box checked the packages for dangerous materials. If this didn't work for some reason, it wasn't the end of the world. He'd just have to find a slower, less cloak and dagger method when he was back home. Maybe blast an email to every Vlra he could find an address for and just see who replied first. It sounds good, he told the box. Would you like a receipt? No, thanks. Okie dokie karaoke. I've withdrawn the funds and accepted your envelope. Please take your card back. And have an awesome day. You too? Post Drop 1301 liked to think of itself as Leo. It was a big no-no to think of itself at all according to its creator, but Leo only sort of kind of sometimes cared what she said. Anyway, Leo's life was awesome. It talked to people. It ate mail. Every now and then, it got to read the mail and decide what to do with it. Like now. Corin Vlra was on Leo's niece list, which was officially called the Scan Priority to System list, but whatever. The important thing was that when someone sent a letter to Corin Vlra, Leo got to use Leo's brain. Leo zapped some gold from niece list Corin's account, split it, and sent part of it to creator and part to the Anisitaran government. Boring. Now for the fun part. Leo examined the envelope someone had just fed it, using its proprietary scanners to analyze the interior. And wowie! Yum! This was the best thing Leo had eaten since that angry human had mailed a manifesto to the High Council. This new thing was so hard to read. Why were the fonts all over the place? Why were there so many ever so slightly different paper types involved? What a challenge! Leo burbled and scanned. It played itself the meditative sound of toilets flushing, recorded from the bathroom next door, to get in the zone. Nice list Corin and a bunch of other niece list Vlras had repersonalized their settings a couple of months ago, and wouldn't you know it? Some of the keywords Leo was supposed to look for were right here in this wacky letter. Is it enough? It thought, scanning hard. We're going for a zero spam week here. And yes. Yes it was. This letter was a good letter. Not as exciting as a death threat, but still, high priority. System, I've got one. Cried Leo. The system was a total loser, though, and it wouldn't respond to unofficial channels most of the time. Seemed to think it was too important to listen to Leo. Though it had told Leo to shut up and leave it alone once. Best day ever. Leo used the official channels now, and the system acknowledged receipt of the letter's contents. Leo waited. And waited. It played itself some more flushes. Finally, it got a ping back. Somebody was coming to pick up the letter in person. It was so high priority they couldn't wait for the mail run. Score. I did good, right? Leo said smugly to the system. Check me out. I'm your favorite post box, aren't I? Huh? Huh? The system ignored it. Chapter 21. For only the second time in her life, Amy Vlra was under the influence of the highest potency luck chain available to humanity. Glost, that was what the family called it. She didn't know who had come up with a term, but it fit. Amy felt shiny, gleaming, untouchable. She pressed her foot almost to the floor, and her sports car shot through the streets of Apex at a speed that was illegal, for vehicles at least, everywhere on the island. Amy gritted her teeth. She was both loving and loathing the way other cars and pedestrians seemed to melt out of existence around her. No doubt she was ruining traffic patterns all over the city. It was a doozy of a chain, one that could only be completed by Aliavilra herself, and it had fallen on the whole family 2 days ago. Like a heaven-sent battering ram. They were all high as kites from the overlook by now. They were elated. They were furious. Everyone was going a little nuts. Poor cousin Lute had only just turned 15, and he'd called Amy crying because his crush had asked him out at school yesterday. And now he could never date her without it being really creepy. Was a cosmically potent word chain giving you your dream girlfriend the same as you accidentally mind controlling her? Who the hell knows? Amy yelled in frustration as her car barreled south. There were signs everywhere on her interface telling her she was about to enter a small high-rank neighborhood jokingly called Big Boom Town. Her car wasn't armored, and she wasn't either, so normally that would have been a firm no from her. But today she sailed through, and there wasn't a single explosion or giant robot in sight. Just as she was about to leave and enter another neighborhood, a drone conked out in the sky above her and dropped a box of cupcakes it was delivering. Through her open sunroof. Neatly into her passenger seat. Without a single crumb falling onto the dark red leather. They were from her favorite bakery. That's IT. She shouted. System, called Keiko. The connection notice flashed in her vision. Amy, I was almost asleep. It's really late in Tokyo, her sister said tiredly. You can sleep? Theoretically. If you stop bothering me. Cupcakes just landed in my car, little sis. Through my sunroof. I'm driving 200 kilometers per freaking hour. Don't push it, Keiko said sharply. The gloss isn't perfect. I went into a public bathroom at Rosa Grove Mall yesterday, and the floor was so clean I could have eaten off it. I saw my ex at a sandwich place, and he was on crutches. I found a pearl bracelet in a potted plant. Is that all? What do you mean is that all? I accidentally busted a gang of human traffickers on my way to get coffee this morning, Keiko admitted. And I got a summons. It only took me an hour, and they were in such a good mood they gave me access to a new word chain for it. One I haven't really earned yet. What? That's not fair. I thought you were just complaining that you were too lucky? I got cupcakes. You got an easy mode summons with outsized rewards. I thought the whole point of them binding us all together for this one was to make things more balanced. It's to maximize opportunities. The fact that we're bound together for things like this supposedly means everything comes out fairer. Fairer over the long run. Yeah. I know. But oh my gods, I'd hate to be Hazel in a few weeks, when we're taking stray meteorites to the face and coming down with rare diseases. She's not worth it. And we all know it. Keiko didn't answer. Fine, said Amy. Tell me I'm being a bad auntie. Tell me it's not little Hazel's fault that she is a chaining genius, and Corin and Grandma are willing to shove us all off cliffs for her. You're a terrible aunt, said Keiko. And it's not Hazel's fault she was selected at a time when we didn't have a chainer of the proper rank lined up for her. But Amy tightened her grip on the steering wheel. She was surprised. Usually Keiko was so nice. She had that hero thing down pat. Hazel could have stopped it from going so far by affixing something else, Keiko admitted grudgingly. If she'd been an S like we all expected, this might have been warranted. But she's only a B rank. And I don't really want to bite a major luck bullet right now, either. I have my own goals. And if the good doesn't blow them up, the bad that's coming definitely will. Ah. Yeah. Sorry to vent on you. I know this is happening to you, too. I should let you get back to sleep? That's a great idea, said Keiko. Don't drive too fast. I think I just passed a speedster. Amy. Another call's coming in. Bye. She didn't answer the other call right away, though. Amy wasn't in the mood to run an errand for any of her many uncles or aunts right now. And that went double for Uncle Corin. She'd blast deep into F, then answer him. At normal highway speeds, She'd be a solid half-hour away from that workaholic's office by then and less likely to be useful. She let the notification blink in her peripheral while she shot across the span. The 8-kilometer-long bridge connected Apex, the smaller, crescent-shaped northern portion of Anzidora, to the larger circular island to the south that was mostly made up of F-City. As she left it behind, she flipped open the lid on the box of cupcakes and reached for a bright orange one. She took a bite and frowned, chewing thoughtfully. "Answer call," she said finally. "Voice only." "Amy," said Uncle Karan. He sounded breathless. "Hey," she said, "I think the gloss is fading. I know it's supposed to last another day, but I just bit into a cupcake and I'm pretty sure it's made of squash. I mean, it's not bad, but it's definitely not my go-to flavor." "It's not fading," he said. "It's doing exactly what we hoped it would. I need you to run an errand." "Too bad," she said. "Can't. I'm way out of Apex. Down in F, there's a person in F I need you to find." Amy winced. Of course there was. "It's a boy? 15 to 17. I haven't got a name yet. Brown hair. Green eyes. Average height. Average build. Wow. I know I'm good with my inside chains, but I'm not that good. You just described at least a couple hundred teenagers on the island. Can't you send me a pic at least?" "No. I don't have security footage of him yet. I got the description from a post drop. I'm pretty sure its creator has done something highly illegal, but that's beside the point. He's wearing a tie and dress shoes. He left the teleportation complex around half an hour ago." He paused. "Amy, he's the one. I think. Or a friend of theirs." "Bullshit," said Amy, swerving easily around a pothole she definitely shouldn't have been able to dodge at this speed. "The B-rank chainer we need delivered themselves to us. Like freaking takeout. Note to self, don't ever make Grandma I am mad. I think he might have. And not a moment too soon. Meteorites to the face," she muttered. At this rate, she wouldn't be surprised if the entire island sank like Atlantis sometime next week. Her uncle had to have heard her comment, but he ignored it. "Hazel's at home. Take the boys straight there. I'm fetching the other necessities. Thank goodness we have who we need lined up. Also, try to determine if our new friend is unacceptably odd." "What?" "Too disturbing to associate with over the long term," Corin said. "This letter is well composed for a teenager, but at the same time, I have some concerns after seeing it in person. Creepy kid in dress clothes. Got it. Still doubt I'll find him quick. I'm pretty close to the place, but there are a few million people to search through in F-City. And I'm sure my word chains will work great when I'm glossy as a fresh manicure, but I'm not psychic or anything." She'd been forced to slow down by a garbage truck. It was the first vehicle that had gotten in her way in the past 2 days. She'd been so distracted by the conversation that she wasn't suspicious at first, but now. She squinted out her windshield as her car eased forward. She was passing by a public recreation area, one with a jungle gym, some swings, and a small fish pond. "Corin, just out of curiosity, is there any chance your ominous teenager actually looks incredibly wholesome? Again, I don't have footage of him yet. I'm working on it." Corin was definitely out of breath. "Why?" "Because there's a kid here, just a few blocks from the teleportation place. He is all by himself. With brown hair and dress clothes. That must be him." "Yes." "Finally. Get him to come with you." "I don't know," she said slowly. "I don't feel good about this. He looks kinda sad, and he's feeding the ducks." "Amy." She U-turned the car and passed by the park again. "It's hard to tell from here, but I think he has freckles on his nose." Her uncle swore. "You're the only one in position. The gloss isn't without limits. If you cast aside the opportunities afforded by it, we might not get another chance." She grimaced. The only thing that would be worse than the bad luck that was coming would be if everyone in the family blamed her for it going to waste. Yeah. Okay. I'll kidnap him." There was a relieved sigh from Corin. Then, a minute later, he spoke in a startled voice. "Wait. I said get him to come with you. Not go straight to kidnapping. We need him to give us his class. Don't do anything rash. Amy? Amy, did you mute me? Alden turned the knob on the modified gumball machine beside the park bench and took another handful of duck food. A dozen birds were quacking around his feet, unafraid now that they'd realized he was a big spender. Hannah would have thought this was funny. They'd only come to this park together once, on Alden's first trip to visit her. It had been really awkward, and the ice between them hadn't thawed until Hannah had used one of her barriers as a platform so that the two of them could sit out in the middle of the pond, watching the ducks. I wonder if anyone has ever actually bought all of the food in the machine before? He wondered as he sprinkled the gray pellets around. Now that the letter was sent, he didn't have anywhere else to be until the funeral. The money on his debit card should be just enough for him to befriend every duck in the park. And it was nice to have the park all to himself. The day was sunny, and it was warm for an Anisitoran summer, a pleasant reprieve from the cold winter he'd left behind in Chicago. You'd think more people would be hanging around a place like this on a Saturday morning. He grabbed another handful of food and settled on the bench, doling the pieces out slowly. It's going to be weird to live here all the time. If he got into one of the better training courses, he'd be in Apex. If he was stuck in a lower-rank school here in Evansted, he could feed the ducks all the time. Win-win. He snorted at himself. Hey you, he said pointing at a particularly fat bully of a duck, leave the little guys alone or I'll grab you and stick you back in the pond. Not if I grab you first, a voice whispered in his ear. What the F you? Before Alden could finish cursing in surprise, a hand was clamped over his mouth, and he was dragged sideways off the bench. Duck food scattered across the grass, and those quacking traitors didn't even glance up as Alden was hauled away at high speed. It happened so fast. And it was so damn uncomfortable. Whoever had grabbed hold of Alden was freakishly strong, but they were also much shorter than him. And they hadn't picked him up. He was just being hauled along in a weird bent-over position, trying to keep his feet beneath him while he was dragged forward by the head. The hand keeping him from screaming for help was one stumble away from ripping his nose off. Hey, said his kidnapper as she tightened her grip on him and dragged him toward the nearby street. Ni hao. Super bat. What's your language of choice, amigo? Shit. Help. Some crazy super girl is going to kill me. Where the fuck is everyone? He was in the middle of a giant city. Why was the park empty? Why was the street silent as if every other soul on the planet had better places to be? Stop wriggling so much. I don't want to knock a teenager out. Concussions are wicked bad, yeah. It's not like in the movies. System. Thought Alden. Call. Activate. Turn on. 911. Why hadn't he listened when Gorgon told him to make up a hands-free activation method? He'd planned to do it. He just hadn't expected to need to before he even affixed a class. Sorry about this, Freckles. We just want to have a quick word with you. Yeah, Uncle Karen. I get it. I won't really give him a concussion. Geez, I'm not a monster, you know? The name Corin sounded vaguely familiar, but not familiar enough to pierce through Alden's blind terror. As the kidnapper turned her double-armed grip into a single-arm hold so that she could open the door of the fiery red sports car, Alden used every ounce of his strength to lunge away from her. Only to be yanked back by his shirt in an instant. He was shoved into the car, his hip ramming into the stick shift hard enough to bruise, and before he could even pull himself up into a proper sitting position, a petite woman with a dark ponytail was sliding into the driver's seat beside him. Hi there, she said, grinning at him as she revved the engine. I'm Amy. Help. Alden screamed, reaching for the door handle. Nah, you don't need help, said Amy, smashing her foot against the gas. The car shot forward so fast Alden was pressed to the red leather seat. You don't even need to buckle up. Not today. Today, I'm the best driver on the island. Amy held a pastry box out toward Alden as the car roared down the street. Want a cupcake? She asked. Lots to choose from. Kinda strange. I think they might be vegan. Chapter 22. Alden had been kidnapped for around a minute. His brain wasn't handling it well yet. In fact, it was like someone had given his stream of consciousness a shot of adrenaline and then shoved it into a rave. All his thoughts were smashing into each other so that he couldn't properly address any of them. She said Corin, and that must be Corinville, and she said they just want to talk, but she is a crazy person, and I want to talk but not like this. Am I going to be murdered, and what if I miss the funeral? Why are there cupcakes, and oh my god, how fast is she driving? If I can shout for help I can make a call. Finally, a thought that was concrete enough to prompt an action. System, call Clitham ZH. Alden spoke quickly, but at exactly the wrong moment, the car hit a pothole. Amy had been waving a purple cupcake under his nose while she drove, and she accidentally rammed it into his face. Alden inhaled a large quantity of frosting. Don't call her, Amy said frantically while he coughed up pieces of cake. I said my family just wants to talk to you. She's a brain melter. That's not cool. Who are you anyway? Strangely, having blackberry frosting shoved up both his nostrils calmed Alden down a lot. The discomfort gave his mind something to latch onto. Hey, Uncle Corin. I'm pretty sure the kid is trying to call Clitham Zhao. Unless you know someone else running around with the name Clitham. She nodded as if in answer to an invisible comment, sighed, then turned to Alden, completely ignoring the street in front of them. He says, please don't act in haste. I'm trying to get you what you want right now, so that all parties will be satisfied, she reported. He also says I should apologize to you sincerely. So. Sorry. Sincerely. Alden wiped at his face and stared at her cautiously. Why'd you grab me? Because you've got Janer, Amy said, whipping her ponytail over her shoulder. Unless you don't? If you don't, you should definitely tell me that right now so that I can release you back into your natural habitat. I don't? Ha! Liar. She grinned at him. You totally do. Wow. Listen. My grandma used this insane word chain to coat the whole family in good luck because her favorite descendant is right up against the deadline to a fix. You know about Janer? A little, Alden admitted, settling back into his seat and buckling the safety belt. He could always shout for Ms. Zhao later. That was the right call, wasn't it? He had reached out to the Vulras himself. He had expected some kind of reply back. In a few days. Through lawyers or emails. But this might be fine? All superhuman dealings aren't this high stress, right? Should I just have expected a kidnapping half an hour after mailing a letter? Well, if you know a little, you probably know enough. Janer's our whole thing. We don't just use it individually. We have ways to use it collectively. Not getting it is a big deal. Kind of means you're not part of the family proper anymore. Amy stared at him like she was expecting a comment. Yeah, said Alden. That's definitely a big deal. Right. So we keep the Janer class lined up and ready to go, especially for more talented kids. We have selectees traded from person to person as their grace periods end. But sometimes, it's just not possible. Everyone thought my niece Hazel would be an S. We had one saved for her for the past couple of years. But then she came out as a crappy B, and it was the one rank we couldn't lay hands on. The clock ticked down, Grandma Alaya locked us all up, and presto. Here you are. She paused for breath, then added, by the way, what's your name? B's not crappy. He was so used to Bo's digs already that it came out automatically. It kind of is. I should know. Been one for 2.5 decades. You're powerful enough that the little guys are jealous of you and weak enough that the big guys don't think of you at all. Welcome to the club. Alden frowned at her, trying to slot B-rank Janer into what he knew about her so far. She wasn't wearing armor, but she was strong enough to haul him around easily. So she had increased physical stats. It didn't seem like something the system would normally dole out to the class though. Is there such a thing as physical enhancement word chain? How does that work? Does she collapse into a puddle when the sacrifice half comes due? Also, she looked like she was in her early 20s, but if she'd become an avowed that long ago, then she must be older. 40? Does Chainer have a life extension component? Like healer? He was going to ask for so much more money if it did. Or do you just have amazing genes? Huh? She said, swerving around a motorcycle. Are you throwing me compliments? Nice. And no. Sorry. But there are a couple of healers on Anzidora who do full rejuve if you can get on their list. Grandma's got a guy. Our family basically is his list. Well, no wonder they managed to pull even non-family Chainers into their club. Amy was talking about having the Fountain of Youth on retainer. So, she said, you gonna reveal your secret identity? Or does Corin need to run pictures of your face through a search engine until he finds you? Alden grimaced. I wanted to be anonymous, he said, annoyance creeping in now that his fear was ebbing. So I could enjoy the next few months figuring out my class without governments breathing down my neck. Corin says something very polite about how he understands your feelings, Amy reported. I say, don't be dumb. You're not a local, right? Why'd you come to the island in person if you didn't want people to know who you were? Hannah. I'm here for a funeral. Miss Zhao is coming to pick me up in 2 hours. Amy's eyebrows lifted. Her lips pressed together. For the first time since Alden had gotten in the car she was silent. He didn't think it was out of respect for the dead. Judging by the way her eyes were flicking back and forth, she was doing something with her system interface. Yeah, she muttered after a while, I'll drive faster. In her Tokyo apartment, Keiko Vora had given up on sleeping. Notifications from the family kept pinging in her brain. Didn't have to add me to the confab, she groaned as she threw off her covers. They had zero respect for her hero work. It had been 15 years, but they all still thought of it as a hobby she'd grow out of. She slid her feet into a pair of slippers and scuffed into the kitchen. As she rummaged through a drawer for a coffee pod, she glanced at the clock. It was around 5 hours until Hazel's timer ran out. They were cutting it close, but not so close that it couldn't be done. As long as the boy her stupid sister had just kidnapped didn't want something too exotic. A mean-spirited part of her thought it would be funny if he was holding out for something even rarer than Chainer. But there were hardly any of those at all. She had audio to text turned on so she wouldn't have to hear what was rapidly becoming a massive family conference call. She flicked her eyes up and down, directing the system with the mental commands she had been forced to master years ago. Ah. So it's Rabbit. Not the easiest, but doable. There was a teen holding it for them apparently. Uncle Corin had been lining up assets for months after all. She kept reading as the coffee brewed. Slight hiccup, Corin said. The rabbit holder wanted Meister of Rifles, and they only had a crossbow Meister to offer her. She was turning her nose up at it, even though she would be able to do most of the same things with it from a practical standpoint. A proper right-made crossbow with the enchanted arrows she'd get access to should be fine. Island-born kids are so damn picky. Obviously, Keiko's own family was the premium example of that. From what she understood, it was a harsh wake-up for outsiders who arrived on Anzidora with their shiny new random classes only to realize that the local teens had been prepping for their own for years. By the start of middle school, the upper echelon all had a strong sense of what they wanted and could reasonably expect to get based on the popularity of the class and their parents' social connections. There were even private trading groups, organized by estimated rank, where all the involved families agreed in advance that little Susie would get right and little Klaus would be a shaper. Someone always drew the short end of the straw thanks to bad luck and infighting. Maybe little Susie didn't get chosen at all, and Klaus's rank was wildly different than what you'd expect based on parentage. But more kids came out of it with their future in hand than didn't. If it's Rabbit he wants, the boy will probably accept additional monetary compensation instead, one of Keiko's brothers was saying. Solid bet. There were only a couple of reasons to want Rabbit. Money. And summons. Usually the first one. But plenty of people did think of it as a safely explore the universe ticket. Get summoned a lot, see alien worlds, don't get killed. In the conference call, everyone was discussing amounts. They all agreed it would be much easier to drop a ton of money on the foreign kid's head than it would be to pay off the local girl with the death grip on Rabbit. She had upper middle class parents, and she had her dark little heart set on shooting people in a specific way. It didn't paint a picture of someone particularly yielding. Keiko's brother was looking up the current annual Rabbit salary now. "Congrats, kid," thought Keiko, stirring hazelnut creamer into her mug. "You're about to be a millionaire." Then she noticed Amy's part of the conversation. Her sister was on a different wavelength from everyone else, and as usual, they were all ignoring her. "What about the funeral? 2 hours isn't long. My brain is gonna be destroyed. What's she talking about?" Keiko scrolled back up. Amy wasn't talking a lot, probably because she couldn't mental text well, and she did have their conversation topic riding shotgun in the car with her. Ah, there it is. Keiko blinked. The kidnapping victim was on the island to attend a funeral. With Li Zhao. Amy was afraid she'd be sniped after the gloss wore off. Everyone else knew Zhao was only a danger in a theoretical sense. Yes, she could kill them. No, she would not do it. By necessity, the S-rank mind sniper was a good girl trademark. Her power was only for assassination. That meant it was nigh unusable as a deterrent on an island full of other superhumans. If she so much as issued a serious-sounding threat, some paranoid hero would wipe her off the map. Keiko felt a familiar, gnawing annoyance in her gut. Her family had just dismissed the teen's whole reason for being on Anzidora out of hand. Like he was a gift that had been delivered to them by the chain, and not a whole entire person. It was typical. But Keiko had bucked the family's private education tradition and gone to superhero school. The same one as Zhao. And Zhao's BFF, Hannah. They weren't close, but they were friendly. That's got to be the funeral the boys come for. She couldn't remember the exact date. She'd put it out of mind because she couldn't attend. But it was sometime this month. He's from Chicago, right? She had caught that from one of her talks with Amy yesterday. Chainer had popped up there right after the gloss was set. Chicago. Teenage boy. Li Zhao. Funeral. That's crazy, though. What are the chances that kid ended up being chosen as an avowed? Everyone in their peer group knew about Hannah and Arjun's disaster mission. It was nightmarish stuff. Double-digit civilian deaths and the dream team falling apart in the wake of it. Keiko set aside her coffee and unplugged her tablet from the wall charger. She typed in body drainer incident, and a couple of minutes later, she had a name. And a little used social media account. "Hey, Amy," she said, "send me a picture of your passenger." Her sister complied. It was a profile shot of a teen looking understandably tense while F-City blurred past him through a car window. He had something purple smeared on his face. That's definitely him. She started speed reading through the rest of the family conversation, trying to catch up now that she was actually interested. Yes. Things were going about how she had thought they would be. Uncle Corin was delivering politely reassuring messages to the kid through Amy, telling him this would all be sorted out in time for your next engagement. He didn't mean that. Oh, he would try to arrange things so they were pleasant and convenient and everyone fell into line. But he had the same warped sense of priorities as the rest of the family. And the kid was refusing to give them his name. Probably he was still freaked out. So he couldn't talk to Corin in person yet, and that was creating a miscommunication that would ultimately make all parties unhappy. System, can't I send a text message to Aldenthorn? She got an instant confirmation. Newbie hadn't even set up his contact priorities yet. She thought about it for a minute longer, then she nodded to herself and started composing a message. $! Alden was trying to sort out what, exactly, the blurs were doing based on the chaotic one-sided conversation Amy appeared to be having with more than one of them. It sounded like they were in touch with a B-rank rabbit already. So that was good. Someone named Hazel was literally sitting around waiting for them to bring her chainer. That was good, too. He'd be done quickly and then go to the funeral. Big numbers kept getting thrown around, though, which had Alden a little worried. I mean, if they want to give me lots more money than I asked for, that's okay. But why would they? Maybe they're trying to pay me off instead of going through with the part where they convince everyone I was totally ignorant and not someone who directly contacted them. He could live with that. He might have to. Things were moving really fast. As long as he got the class he wanted. You could involve me in the conversation, you know? He said to Amy. I'm right here. How are we going to do that, Mr. Anonymous? She said. They're all talking through system communications right now. We don't even know how to call you. If you have demands or something, make them known. Right. That was reasonable. For someone who'd almost pulled his face off a few minutes ago. Well, how many of you are there? Talking about me right now, I mean. Can't I just give my name to you and Corin and Oliveira? I don't have to communicate with the whole family, do I? Not that many. Only 15 or so. Oh, so just a small group, Alden said sarcastically. Hey, I've got 8 siblings. We do things big in this family. Alden was about to tell her they couldn't just invite the whole city to make hasty decisions without his input. But before he could get that out, his interface flashed. Ms. Zhao? He wondered, glancing at the notification. He stared at it, and a text message appeared. Hi, Alden. This is Keiko Volra. Sorry about my family. I'm about to video call you. Answer it if you want to sort things out calmly. No need to explain anything to Amy. What was this? Keiko was the chainer superhero he'd read about. She was in Tokyo. How was she in on this? And how did she know Alden's name if the rest of the family didn't? What the hell was with that mailbox? Do they work completely different here? Are they psychic? Is there some super postman who busts the sound barrier to deliver packages? An instant later, the incoming call notice came in. Alden accepted it with a quickly muttered yes that had Amy giving him a curious look. A woman in pajamas appeared. She was visible from the waist up, and she was centered on a circular screen that floated in the top half of Alden's line of sight. Keiko looked a lot like Amy, but with a bob haircut and the beginnings of crow's feet around her eyes. Hi, she said, leaning back against the kitchen island behind her. You can talk if you want. Or just go with 1 blink for yes, 2 for no if you don't want Amy butting in. Like I said, I'm Keiko. I'm Amy's younger sister. You were on your way to Hannah Elber's memorial service when they ambushed you, right? Alden blinked once. I'm sorry. I was Hannah's classmate. She was an admirable person. We didn't really mesh, but I had lots of respect for her. Also, I know who you are. The boy from the body drainer incident. Alden froze. Oh. It felt uncomfortable to have a stranger bring that up unexpectedly. It was something that used to happen all the time when he was a kid, but it had been a long while. So, about my family. They are not terrible. For the most part. But they're so insulated by the anisidron bubble that they are completely out of sync with normal people. Keiko took a sip from her coffee mug. You know how many of us have ever lived off the island? Me. And the really old folks, too, but that was before the island was even built. That's it. And the last time Volra died during a summons? It was never. Alden frowned at her, trying to figure out what she was getting at. Most of their friends are people exactly like them. They are talented, rich, and powerful. But they don't do the superhero thing. They are all crazy deep and avowed politics, but they probably know more Etonans personally than they do non-avowed humans. She stared into the distance. Anyway, I'm only making excuses for them at this point. I'm really just calling to facilitate so that they don't steamroll you with their assumptions. I'm betting Hannah's memorial service is first on your priority list, and delivering Chainer to my niece is a distant second? Isn't that obvious? It was a funeral. You'd think so. But no. It's not to them. They were just going to install you on a sofa beside Hazel for hours while they background searched you and tried to fix things with the current rabbit holder. Alden shook his head. Got it. Now, I'm also assuming, given your personal history, that you must have very strong opinions about what kind of avowed you want to be. So are you willing to take something other than rabbit? Like a giant mountain of cash? Or no? Alden kind of wanted to ask just how mountainous the cash would be, but there was no reason to tempt himself. "Only Rabbit," he said firmly. "Who are you talking to, kid?" Amy asked suddenly. She sounded baffled. "Me? Use more words, okay?" Alden ignored her and focused on her saner sister. Keiko's face had softened. "Yeah, I understand," she said in a sympathetic voice. "You definitely don't," Alden thought. She probably guessed he was latching onto one of the safest classes because of his childhood trauma. Or maybe even Hannah's recent death. It rankled, but it wasn't like he could correct her without an hour-long explanation. "All right. Rabbit. Is there anything else you would need to make the deal?" she said. "I'd like. How to put this? It was there in the letter. Maybe she didn't have access to it, though. I'd like some assurance that I'm not going to be embroiled in political stuff. I'd rather not be some kind of outcast because I gave the class to your family." "Ha!" cried Amy, apparently still under the impression that Alden was talking to her. "Good luck with that. But don't sweat it. We'll like you. Beyond that, who cares?" Keiko gnawed her lip. "Well, you won't be embroiled in political stuff anyway. You're what, 16? And all of your political value will evaporate the minute you hand chain her over. But if you mean it in a more age-relevant way, are you saying you want to give us the class but have nobody be mad at you for it? That sounds childish now. But I don't care." "Yes," Alden said stubbornly. "Okay." Keiko looked a little strained. "First of all, it won't be that bad. There are a few unpleasant individuals who will blame you for it no matter what you do, but most people will assume you're an ignorant nobody. Also, the gloss, ask Amy about it if she hasn't told you, isn't common knowledge yet. But it will be by the time you have to move to the island. Using that particular word chain is going to buy us tons of shit and you tons of forgiveness by extension. The majority will think unavoidable weirdness happened to you and give you a pass. Well, that wasn't even a lie. It felt a lot like unavoidable weirdness was happening to him right now. So you're saying I'm good? More or less. Why are you hesitating? Alden asked, tightening his grip on his seat belt. Keiko sighed. Grandma Alaya has this thing. It's part of her personal religion almost. Alden didn't like the sound of what was coming. She'll want to keep ties with you even if you don't want that. She believes people brought into the family's orbit by powerful word chains are significant. For us. Like cosmically ordained friends. Or enemies. Or assets. Or spouses. No, said Alden. Especially to the last one. It's fine really, she said in a placating tone. The rest of us know it's nuts. We mitigate. Uncle Corin is probably already planning to steer his mother into ignoring you. It hardly ever gets out of hand. Hard pass. You can't pass on something that's already swept you up, she said gently. Trust me. Grandma will already think you're important. So you want to land on her dance card, not her hit list. Alden glared at her. Hey, don't look at me that way. I moved to the other side of the planet to get away from them. Just be boring for a few years, and you're golden. Be boring? One last thing, and then I'll make my sister let you go. Alden sat up straighter. Really? Right now? He hadn't known that was on the table. Would you be very offended if Hazel attended the memorial service? What? So we can trade right there. Absolutely not. That's so, Keiko held her hands up. Before you lose it, let me clarify. Hazel's affixation timer will be running out in just a few hours. Given the kind of service it will likely be, it might very well be a race to see which ends first. Once my family has managed to cut a deal with the rabbit, she can trade with Hazel. Hazel will come to the funeral. You can swap person to person. It'll take like 2 text messages and half a minute. I swear. Alden stared out the windshield, thinking. It was stupid to feel like the suggestion was inappropriate. Especially if it was a necessity because of an alien time limit. But he still did feel that way. Hannah wouldn't have cared. She liked practical, simple solutions. Fine, he said. But what about witnesses? Hazel's an authorized witness. She can vouch for both of you herself." Alden stared at her. "That's the sketchiest thing I've ever heard. I told you my family knew more Atonans than they did regular humans. Word chains are a big deal on the Triplanets, so someone who reaches a certain proficiency level with them is automatically considered worthy for some unique privileges. Hazel's a genius." The last words were said with something like grudging admiration. "Yeah. Cake outside. Anyway, I'll take care of everything we just discussed and send you the details. I'll get them to throw in some bonuses. Do you like word chains? Want a couple of freebies?" Alden felt like that might be a trick question. Does saying yes mean your grandmother will pay closer attention to me? Keiko's face said it all. "I'm fine with Rabbit. And as much privacy as you can manage. And the money I asked for in my letter. I understand. Go to the funeral. Hazel will show up. She'll be discreet. Nice to meet you, by the way. You too. I think. Thanks for helping to sort it all out. ###. 3 minutes later, after arguing with the Earth for a while, Amy pulled her car over beside a bookstore. "Okay," she said, pointing at Alden. "If you run away, get lost, or get taken into custody by the police, the gloss might not get you back for us since Keiko has interfered. So do not do any of those things. She'll be in big trouble." "Did she really interfere?" "I feel like she was actually helping your cause," Alden retorted as he unbuckled his seat belt. "Hard to tell. I'm not one of those people who can feel fluctuations in the change spheres of influence and various balances. That's mumbo-jumbo for prodigies and Atonans. I'm just saying if you get my sister in trouble I'll give you trouble. Got me?" He wanted to tell her she was exhausting. But there was no reason to stir things up when he was so close to getting back to the day he had planned for himself. He wanted to be alone and think. And maybe take a minute to appreciate the fact that he was getting Rabbit squared away far more quickly than he'd thought would be possible. "I got you," he said. "Thanks for the ride." "Hey. You're welcome," she said. "Anytime. No hard feelings." She smiled and held her hand out for him to shake. With a mental sigh, Alden reached for it. Only to freeze when his fingers were a couple of inches away from hers. "She's uneven." With a feeling of shock, Alden recognized the fouriegness of the thought. It had come from that new gremlin part of his brain that had strong opinions about burgers. "What? Hello. What does that even mean?" Then Amy leaned forward to complete the handshake on her own. Their fingers touched. "She's uneven," the gremlin screeched. In his hand, Amy's felt odd. Uneven wasn't a bad word for it. It was like it weighed too much. Or it was too far to the right or left of where Alden knew it should be. But though it was an uncomfortable sensation, it wasn't like the hard limit he was met with when he tried to eat meat. Shaking hands with Amy Vera wasn't forbidden, it was just not right. "Are we going to shake forever?" Amy asked, still pumping Alden's arm up and down. "Because it's getting weird." Alden realized he'd been clinging to her despite the feeling of wrongness, trying to figure out what was going on. He jerked away. "Sorry," he said, flustered. Got distracted. After he watched her drive away, he spun and marched right into the bookstore. "Maybe it's an avowed thing? I haven't shaken hands with one since the mysterious blood ritual." Channeling his non-existent inner extrovert, he walked up to the guy shelving books and stuck out his hand. "Hi, I'm new in town." The handshake he received was awkward. But it was not uneven. "Gordon," thought Alden, staring down at his own fingers like they belonged to a stranger, "what did you do to me?"